to Buddha in the Hood. Today, I am sitting down with one of my dearest friends of all time, Anthony. I met over 35 years ago, and right off the jump, we just became friends instantly. And so today, we're at Western Florida, the SGI USA Florida Nature Center, and I'm going to interview Anthony Davis, who had some pretty profound impressions about the Lotus Sutra. So Anthony, please, you were talking earlier about revelation of the Lotus Sutra that you saw at the exhibit here, at the Lotus Sutra exhibit at the Florida Nature Culture Center. Could you just give us a little bit more about your impressions and thoughts on that Lotus Sutra?
Yes, quite incredible. You know, I had heard, obviously I'm a Buddhist, and I had heard for many years that the Lotus Sutra is the highest teaching of Buddhism, and its application around the world has been well documented, but I didn't know much about it in the United States. So here at the Humanism of the Lotus Sutra exhibit, I noticed that they had replicas of some newsletters that were written by some of the transcendentalists in the 19th century, mid-19th century, like Thoreau, Emerson. There were some thinkers who had been exposed to the Lotus Sutra. They've been translated and brought to the United States. And that because the Lotus Sutra teaches the equality of all human beings and that all human beings are precious and life is precious, that philosophy had influenced them politically, and they got involved. The Transcendentalists influenced a lot of the political circles in the United States at that time. And fellow Buddhists had pointed out that, so this is around the 1840s, 30s, 1840s. This fellow Buddhist pointed out in 1863, of course, that's when Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. It was a state of war, but there were political circles influencing political thought, right? You know, and including that document. Of course, it ended up attempting to free the slaves in a wartime situation, but the principles of equality and dignity were all throughout the Transcendentalist movement. These individuals were exposed to the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, and I found that to be remarkable. So for me, as a Buddhist who practices, or tries my best to practice the heart of the Lotus Sutra, you know, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, I was emboldened, you know, to do more, because in this part of our history in the United States, we got a lot of struggles and problems. I felt like we can continue this effort to take the philosophy of the Lotus Sutra and the dignity of life out and really solve a lot of the problems in our country.
You had mentioned earlier, too, in a presentation about this, about how now the SGI USA is in a movement to gather 50,000 young people, we call them young lions, right, of justice, to gather throughout the country in September of 2018. And you were talking about how the Lotus Sutra impacts that. So could you share a little bit more on what that means?
Okay, well, you know, for me personally, because I think that the dignity of the dignity of human life is a message I think anyone can embrace. It doesn't matter what your religious background is, where you come from. I think that's a universal message. So for me, this 50,000 youth, infusing the next generation with this message and inspiring them with this message, which influences the way they think, that they act. Because if you really embrace the dignity of human life in your heart, you're not going to go around killing people. You're not going to go around supporting groups that want to kill people, want to destroy the environment or anything. So this year, or well, next year, it's only got a couple more days of this year left, but 2018, towards this 50,000 youth gathering in multiple places around the country on September 23rd, that's sort of a kickoff towards emboldening this generation of youth to take this message forward and really help people learn how to respect differences, respect the dignity of human life, and to manifest their full potential so that they also feel involved about and experience the dignity of their own lives.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. And just one other item I wanted to with you to share a little bit about. Earlier, we were talking about how you embrace Buddhism as a philosophy of life because of it being like the science of life. Right. You mentioned that Buddhism and science were closely matched, and you've been a scientist yourself, saw the blend. So if you just expand a little bit more about, life, science and Buddhism?
Well, that's really, I got introduced in 1980, and so that's really one of the things that struck me. So Nichiren Daishonin, who founded, the school of Buddhism based on the highest teachings, based on the Lotus Sutra, in his writings, one of my favorite quotes, he says, Buddhism is reason. And the Soka Gakkai International, the organization based on Nichiren's teachings, the second president, one of his quotes, he said, this is in the late 1950s, he said, science will prove Buddhism to be correct in about 200 years. And he lamented the fact that he would not be alive to see that. And those struck me as being very powerful.
This is Joseph
Toda, right. And so to me, that's what struck me. And the more that I practice Buddhism, the more that I study it, and the more I study other things, I realize, there really is no contradiction. And the other thing about Buddhism too, Soka Gakkai, Nichiren Buddhism in particular, is that you are encouraged to have a seeking spirit and to ask questions. And if you have doubts about things, that all of the answers you get should be based on reason and on science and on actual proof, things in the real world. And that is how you are able to continue to practice, because all of your experiences come from the fact that you are practicing. Not because somebody says something to you or you read a story, you are the story, because you are creating your life and improving your life through practicing.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
All right.
And, you're more than welcome to always appear on Buddha in the Hood with us.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.